Hello, and welcome to episode 19 of the God Cells podcast. I'm Eric Merola. For those who do not know, I have been to Ukraine more than 30 times since 2016. I have also been there during the Russian invasion, while filming my latest documentary, Ukraine, Fetal Stem Cell Pioneers. I will be releasing my new documentary, Ukraine, Fetal Stem Cell Pioneers, on YouTube for free in the very near future. If you have not signed up to my mailing list yet and wish to be informed of its release, go to ericmerola.com. That's EricMerola.com and sign up, or stemcellsmovie.com. You can also subscribe to this YouTube or SoundCloud channel, or follow this project on Twitter. All links are in the description below. Today's podcast is a conversation with an American named Dean, who was suffering from some extreme prostate problems and other issues, and who was with me and 8 others as we made our trek from Poland into Kyiv, Ukraine last September during the Russian invasion. I also released a short film on this project's YouTube channel telling our story of this trip, also in the description below. As always, if you want to ask me anything about this therapy, please do not hesitate to email me. I have been assisting many people making the trek from the United States, Canada, and Europe to go to EmCell. Why are people going to Ukraine to EmCell during the Russian invasion? Because as of right now, EmCell in Ukraine is the only place on earth anyone can get this therapy. Please email me at eric@ericmerola.com. That's ERIC@ERICMEROLA.com if you want to ask me anything about this. I do not get as many emails as you would think, as virtually no one on earth is even aware that this therapy exists. I hope you enjoy today's podcast conversation with Dean.
Hello.
Hey, Dean.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you great. Yeah.
Great.
We haven't spoken since Ukraine, right? Not like on the phone.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So you're in Germany.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm in the California atmospheric river storms.
Is it still bad?
Yeah, it's like a day of okay, and then today is another day of rain. But living in Santa Monica, we
that's
don't.
good.
Yeah, we don't get like the Malibu mudslides or anything crazy here, so it's not that bad.
Are the reservoirs filling up again?
To be honest, I haven't paid attention. Other than like whatever I catch a headline. But I know there were like waterfalls in Malibu and rocks flying onto the PCH and things like that.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's like biblical weather.
Yeah, it is. And to be honest, because ever since Russia invaded Ukraine, when it comes to the news, if it doesn't have anything to do with Ukraine, I'm usually not paying attention. And then
Me too.
yeah, I know, right? And then what's odd too is when you look at all this tornadoes and hurricanes and all the destruction, I look at the news and I go, looks kind of like Ukraine. It's not funny at all, but like it's like I have a different viewpoint. I'm like, yeah, I'm really sorry that this tornado destroyed your neighborhood, but you have no idea what destruction is.
You toured Bucha, didn't you? Did you go to
Well,
Bucha?
I went to Irpin, and we didn't go because we were running out of time. I didn't get into Bucha, but however, as far as the destruction, okay, Bucha was where so much of the rape, torture, and murder occurred, but they didn't flatten entire neighborhoods like they did Irpin. So what they were doing while doing all of that in Bucha, breaking into people's houses and everything we read about, they were shooting artillery at Irpin. So that's why Irpin was more interesting to visit.
Oh.
And so in hindsight, like I looked at my video, and of course I remember it so well, like all the places I toured only with EmCell as my tour guide, and that's where like Bono and Ben Stiller and Blinken and all these people also toured. I was standing on the same ground that all these people were walking around. It is brutal. I mean, it's crazy. And I have so much footage, I don't really know what to do with it. I didn't want to put it all in the documentary. I did use a little bit of it in my credits of the new documentary, but I'm thinking about doing a separate, like short video about it, but I don't know. I mean, honestly, it's almost like nothing people haven't already seen in the news over and over again, but yeah.
Well, it's good to keep them refreshed on it, I think.
Yeah.
It'd be terrible if people forget all about Ukraine just because like the news cycle or something, doesn't I don't know. I fear that will happen.
Well, it's frightening because when I watch the news and I see them no longer cycling the Ukraine in the news cycles as often, it's sort of, I don't know, sort of breaks my heart, honestly. But
yeah, exactly. I hope that I hope it ends soon. I really do. Really, as soon as possible.
Well, everything
would have been over by now.
Yeah, I mean, everything's working in our favor. I mean, Russia is on its heels, on its back feet. I mean, but they keep just throwing more people in to be slaughtered. I mean, it's just crazy. You know.
Yeah,
I mean,
people won't put up with that for too long, I don't think.
You'd like to think so.
You know, when they start playing.
Yeah. I mean, like any other, just that Russia's so darn big. I mean, it's like 11 times.
I know there's 140 million people. I know.
Yeah, it's almost
crazy.
like all of America rising up and overthrowing its government. As far as the scale of it all. But yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, you constantly see good news with more and more Western help, because they realize that Ukraine's not going to give up. I mean, it's really hard for people to understand. Like, Ukraine would rather die than give up what's theirs. And it's really hard for the average Westerner to really get that. Because we're just
nobody has that kind of passion in the West.
Right. Yeah.
That's like really major. Like, those people are courageous. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And never.
Yeah, and it's like, as one of the EmCell doctors said in my ending credits of the new movie, which of course isn't out yet, she said, this isn't our DNA. Like, we have every 100 years.
Oh, good.
Yeah, well, she said, like, every 100 years, Russia tries to commit genocide in our country, and we're just living through this again. It doesn't make it any easier to tolerate, but this is just what we've been dealing with, So
yeah, they have been.
Yeah, and it's very similar because
you haven't been back since. You haven't been back since we were there?
No. When I went in
September.
When I went in September, which I was so happy that you were able to come along, I went there. Of course, I wanted my annual therapy, but I went there because, I'd worked on this movie technically since 2016. I mean, all this accumulated footage and following people. And I said, I can't release this movie without going there during the invasion, if I want to release it soon anyway. So that was the biggest reason. And, is to be there during the invasion. And frankly, there are so many people like Sophia with muscular dystrophy who relies on this therapy on an annual basis. Yeah. They were going to go anyway. And of course, the other kid with muscular dystrophy was there. And of course, you and many others. So to answer your question, it was partly due to finishing. And to answer your question, no, I haven't been back, not because I don't want to, but I've been finishing up the documentary. So that's where it is done now. There's like with any documentary film, there's all these new developments. I think it's okay to say this. There's somebody that I showed it to, like whenever I finish one of these films, I show it to people that I think like would be good to get their input and good to get, maybe who knows what could occur, because a lot of these people are powerful. And this one individual happens to know a lot of NFL players, professional football players who have CTE, which is that, that hideous brain injury that I think Tony Dorsett made the most famous from the Miami Dolphins, but boxers get it, hockey players get it, but football players get it really bad. And it's a very debilitating, sort of brain injury. And the NFL has been trying to cover it up forever. It's just a big mess. Anyway, so
stem cells could help that probably. For
correct.
Sure.
Correct. And that's what I'm trying to say is like, they were talking about getting, and a couple of these guys I know, I'm not an NFL sports fan whatsoever. I had to Google these people, but a couple of them are quite famous. And I asked some of my buddies who follow the NFL, they're like, oh yeah, I know who that guy is. I don't want to say who they are now, but anyway, they're like talking about going. So I'm like, okay, so do I wait and see if they go and try to go with them, include them in the movie? If it does, I mean, it's so hard to finish these movies up.
Yeah, because there's new people though. There's a lot of new people are going all the time, right?
It's not only
busy, aren't they?
Yeah, it's not only well, they're not as busy as they would like to be or as they used to be, but because of the God Cells and because of me releasing that 37-minute preview and of course that short film about all of us going, I speak to on average maybe 5, maybe 10 per month that are going. So I tell them, I either talk to them on WhatsApp or via email, just give them basic advice on what to do since I've done it. Of course, the winter months, even before Russia, were always slow because it's so cold there. But honestly, in September, there was our group. And then in October, I think I spoke to like 7 or 8 people that went. And these are just people that I speak to. It doesn't mean that everybody that goes speaks to me. And then basically, and same thing in November. So September, October, November. So there was 9 of us there when we were there, and at least that in the following 2 months. And then in December, I only think spoke to maybe 5. And then in January, I'm aware of 3 or 4 that are going. So
yeah, it's much more dangerous now for sure.
Yeah, we went.
I'm sure people are really worried.
Yeah, understandably.
We went at the perfect timing.
We went, we did, and we didn't know how to predict that. And it was crazy because we were there. Remember, we were there, and then Putin announces his new conscription.
I know.
And you walk out.
I was going to stay an extra day, but I changed my mind because of that.
Right, but then at the same time, you walk outside, and people are walking their dog and walking their kids around and swinging on the swing sets and going rollerblade, and nobody blinked, in Ukraine when that happened.
They didn't.
It was very amusing in a way. But we did go at a good time.
Eerie, though, walking around Kyiv at 8 p.m. and then and nobody was on the streets, and I was like, oh shit, I better get back to the hotel. It really quieted down real fast, and it got dark real fast on the streets and I didn't realize there was a curfew, and I was like, this is not a good idea.
Yeah,
and,
the curfew is there obviously for a reason, but so wait, you didn't venture downtown, did you, or did you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. Yeah.
And where that big dome is, that big glass dome, in the center of, I went there and I went out for sushi.
That's the Maidan. They call that the Maidan area. That's where the big independence uprising in 2014 occurred. Oh, yeah. And then did you walk up the hill to where the big, okay, cool. The Saint Sophia
monastery?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. It was a church or something. And then there was really steep hill, really, really steep.
Going back down. Yeah, that's St. Andrew's
Actually,
Street.
I walked up it. It was pretty fucking strong. That was a walk. It was like San Francisco.
Oh, yeah. So that's the cobblestone street, right?
Beautiful. Yeah, it was beautiful, though.
Yeah,
I really want to spend more time there.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorite places, honestly. I mean, it's got, as you said in the short interview we did, I mean, it's got so much culture, so much great food, amazing people. It's sort of like this... It's amazing how few people know about it or even understand it's a different country than Russia, honestly. Yeah.
Much better.
yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, honestly, I would love to hear, because I know we've communicated by text and email a little bit, but we've verbally spoken for the first time since September. Whatever you're willing to share, I would love to hear about whatever you're willing to share about your reasons why you wanted the therapy, of course, during, a quote war zone, and then any results you may have had due to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Well, I really went, the main reason was because I have a prostate issue. Mm-hmm. And also I was starting to get tired out when I would walk up and down the stairs to my apartment in New York on the 4th floor and get out of breath too much. And I really wanted to try to, get more stamina and more energy, grow new capillaries and stuff. I've been watching all of the videos and everything. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like it worked. I feel like I can definitely work out much longer, and I don't negotiate with myself whether I should go to the gym or not. I just go, and I never did that. I used to fight myself all the time like that. I would never just get up and go. I would just procrastinate and then put it off and then never go. And my workouts are so much better. I can breathe deeper. I feel like I'm breathing deeper. Do you feel that way?
Yeah.
When you, I feel like I have more oxygen for some reason. And also I'm not waking up to urinate all night long, waking up 10 times a night like I used to. And I just feel like I was doing some stretching the other day, and there's something strange. I knew more of the movement. It felt like I knew more about what I was doing. It's really weird. I felt like I understood my body more. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but I just feel really serene and very comfortable in my mind also. Mm-hmm. And it's just like an overall sense of well-being. I can't really explain it.
I know.
It's just the improved version of myself.
That's wonderful that you said that, because that's what I noticed primarily after my first therapy back in 2016. So like when people ask me, how does it make you feel? I say the same thing. I say, well, it's hard to describe. And so the best way I just remind people is that this is biology. We're all so used to chemicals and drugs and how they affect us, or even caffeine for that matter. We know how they affect us. But when you are introduced with this very unique biology, it's very hard to describe like how it's affecting you. But yeah, one of the things, it starts with psychology for me, and it seems like it did for you too. It affected the brain. And so, for example, for me, my ability to deal with stress changed dramatically. Like the best example I like to give is, like let's say you're having an off day, prior to the cells, for example, and you get an email that annoys you. And in the past, I would have a tendency to dart back basically a shitty email without thinking it through and regretting it later, right? I stopped doing that kind of thing. And I really did. And I also like kind of refined my life, like as if I had like all the burners on the stove on with all these things going. And I found myself turning off a couple of burners going, no, why even bother with those things? Focus over here. And so, and the cells did that for me. And what's interesting is because it's in your brain, it's almost like a rewiring, and it tends to stay. Now that said, I have had the therapy every year to kind of keep as a maintenance, because I also understand the science in that it keeps building upon the previous therapy.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Okay. If you remember the telomere video I released and how the telomeres, but it shows, and that's just further proof that each therapy builds upon the last. Like, so no different than how they discovered this as a therapy, as the stem cells were circulating throughout the maternal body and then remained in the maternal body until death in many cases, based on autopsies. That's how this works as well. The cells don't just die off inside of you. Your immune system doesn't recognize them. In fact, they encourage them to be a part of the family, if you would. And so, yeah. And while they do lay dormant after a while, just like our own stem cells do, they will wake back up again if there's an injury or a reason. But they aren't as powerful in the wake up period as they would be as a whole new batch, a new family of fetal stem cells introduced into your body, a year later, to sort of join the party, if you would. And I'm oversimplifying, but it's remarkable. And so again,
I love it.
Yeah, me too. And the telomere measurements prove that, in that my telomeres aren't necessarily growing. My existing ones, there's no proof of that. We don't have the technology to prove that. All we can do is take a snapshot using the flow cytometer method of my average length of telomeres. And my average length are growing. And it doesn't mean that my telomeres are growing. It means that the fetal stem cells, this huge abundance of them that have been injected into me over the years, are at such a degree that they're affecting my telomere length, because those are long, full-length telomeres. So I kind of joke and say, like I'm a walking Frankenstein. You kind of are too. And what's interesting too is that if you go back to the telomeres, I also point out that it was a 0.25% of my telomeres were the population of long telomeres. Today, it's 8.25% of my population with long telomeres. There's like a 3,000% increase of my percentage of cells with long telomeres. But let's go back to what you were saying. But going back to the gym and everything else, like, because as you said, building new capillaries and strengthening your blood vessels, the endothelial cells, which is what they give you on the first day, to not only do that for you, but they want your circulatory system to be put in overdrive, because the cells can only go where your blood goes. So the better circulatory system you have, the better chance the cells will go to the right places. And so, and when of course
I never felt my lungs fill up as deeply as they do now. Like I can really, when I do breathing exercises, it's like, it's so full of air. Like it's almost like it's like I'm 15 years old.
It's great. I know. And as you know, the way the lungs are made, you breathe in the oxygen goes into the blood supply, and you have more blood supply, tentacles or capillaries and vessels to pull in that oxygen than you had before the therapy. Yeah. It's remarkable. It is.
And then bring it to other organs and stuff, and keep everything healthy.
Yeah. And of course, they cross the blood-brain barrier as well. That's why it's affecting your brain so much. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've been dreaming better too. I've been having better dreams too.
It's interesting that you said that. I noticed that the first time I had it. It's interesting. The first therapy is the most dramatic. I'm not saying that your second therapy isn't going to be good. You're always going to feel, you're going to be reminded, just, oh, I remember this, like the first few months. But it's interesting. Just for me, I can only speak for myself. But while I do feel fantastic, after each additional therapy, I never forget what the first one was like. It's very interesting. And that's why I think it's so important to get the maintenance every year, because fetal stem cells regenerate. And as we age, we're going through a constant state of degeneration. So all it's doing is fighting against that consistently. So why not?
Did you feel more, did you feel more effects like when you first had it, like right after, like a week after, or was it like a couple of months?
No, it's interesting because it's okay. The first thing I noticed for men, did you get the intramuscular injection in your buttocks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was the testicular related testosterone producing cells. So that's the first thing I noticed is your libido goes, whoa, like I'm sure, I don't know if you remember that for yourself or not.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay. So so obviously, but that's a totally separate, group of cells. So that's the first thing that you notice. And as a man, good grief, I mean, that's the first, it's very distracting. So that's all you're, you know what I mean? It's like, so you're like, wow, that's all you're like paying attention to. And it's hard to notice everything else happening. But to answer your question, for my first therapy, it was different than you or anybody else, because my first therapy was my way into gaining EmCell's trust. I think you remember the story, but the short version is, I started out in Mexico. Following this now fraudulent clinic, Stem Cell of America, I realized eventually that they had gotten the cells from the Ukrainians and maybe even stole the cells from them, but I wasn't sure. And so when I reached out to EmCell, they didn't want to have anything to do with me. And it had to do with my following this other guy who was operating in Mexico.
The one from the Merv Griffin show, the one that was on the Merv show.
Right.
That stupid doctor.
Yeah. He's now, I don't mean to diminish the fact that he's passed away, but he's not, he's not around anymore, even though the clinic or the place is still somehow operating. I don't know what's going on. That's a whole separate conversation.
He was nasty.
Yeah. But the point is that it was my way in. I said, look, after they would not let me come over there and with cameras, so basically after multiple Skype calls, back then it was Skype versus Zoom all the time. I just said, look, just let me go in as any other paying patient, but can I please just like bring cameras in the room and just let me film? So honestly, I wasn't anticipating what the therapy would do for me. It was my way in and my way of salvaging
this. It was a surprise to you then.
Yeah. So everything that happened was like an unexpected surprise. And they also said, because they're so humble, at the time, I'm 50 now, I was in my early 40s, 2016? Yeah. So 6 years ago, 7 years ago ish. They said, look, you're young, your blood work looks pretty good. Like, you may not feel a lot because you're healthy, it's going to be great for anti-aging.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And they, in fact, when I was over there, they tested my wife's blood as well. Because what they do, if you ever go over there with a companion that just wants to hang out with you, they'll give like the companion free blood testing and all that, just a diagnostic, since they're running it anyway and they do it in-house. So they tested my wife's everything. My wife's an organic private chef and she takes great care of herself. They just looked at her and said, you do not need this therapy. Like, you're in perfect shape. Like, you do not need this at all. And she's
Really?
Yeah. And she's 6 or 7 years younger than me too. And so back then she was still in her late 30s. So anyway. But yeah, so I had no expectations, and it was all just this huge pleasant surprise for me. And again, it's sort of, and again, I don't know, it's half the reason too, aside from the obvious, that I became so obsessed with this technology,
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of obsessed with it. I talk about it, I think, once a day, at least, to somebody.
Yeah. And again,
so how does Kate like it? Does Kate like it?
Yeah. One of the biggest things for her being a female is her menstrual cycles are, the periods sneak up on her after she's had the therapy. So she doesn't have the cramps and all the usual symptoms that happen before a period. So, and after like a year and a half of not having it, and she's actually skipped, she's done it every couple of years versus every year. But the point is that she did get it with us this trip, and the same thing. Everything is kind of diminished again, where her periods, like, you don't have the usual symptoms leading up to that. But of course, she feels a lot of the same things I do, but she takes such better care of herself than I do. Not that I'm a disaster, but I just work too much, and she's got a much better organized life than I do. But yeah, no, she likes it a lot. Of course, she always wants it. And speaking of which, her mother has had it. Her aunt, her mother's sister, who had a very serious pancreas issue, had her entire pancreas removed and has to live off. She has to carry around insulin 24/7, and it helped her tremendously. I mean, she really attributes it to really virtually saving her life, even though she wasn't at death's door or anything. But yeah.
I've got a friend in Frankfurt that had like a major motorcycle accident. He's been in a wheelchair for like maybe 6 months now. I mean, his legs, they will work. It's just that he had so many operations, and I thought maybe it could help him. I mean, if somebody's been injured badly, it could totally help them, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could. It
makes sense.
Yes, it does. Like, there's a patient in the God cells that got in a motorcycle accident. I don't know if you remember. He said it was like a hot knitting needle in his elbow. There's another patient who I'm actually going to do a podcast with in the next week or so, who has been every year since he saw the God cells, and he had has the exact same problem as this guy. And he says, like, if I was at 100% pain, I'm at 5% today after this.
Wow,
so now that's pain.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's only pain related. He wasn't immobile. Now, when it comes to injuries, because of the nature of a motorcycle accident and injuries, it depends on how much physical damage was made. That will depend on how successful the cells can be. You know what I mean? There's only so much regeneration they're capable of doing. I mean, it's not like you hear the things about building organs and petri dishes, and it's not like that with this. But that said, the earlier this is intervened, as fetal stem cells is given to somebody, like ideally within the first year, the better chances of regeneration. The longer the body sits in the state that it has been in,
I see.
before the cells are introduced, the harder the job it is for the cells. Now, so again, but what EmCell would have to do is look at his X-rays and look at his MRIs and anything related to it, and give, a responsible prognosis on what to expect and things like that require like
metal. No, he didn't hurt his spine. He just like fucked his leg up and everything. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So honestly, I think you should.
Tons of weight and everything. I told him to do. I told him, and I think money might be an issue, so I didn't want to push it too much.
Understandably, it's not. Yeah. But I will encourage him, because it doesn't cost any money, to have him submit. Happy to help him. If you want to have him email me, just submit the MRIs and X-rays and all the basic stuff, and let their neurologists and let their doctors really analyze him, and give their humble opinion on what they would think they could expect out of it. So that's all.
Yeah.
It's worth that.
Okay.
It doesn't cost him anything but time to do that.
Absolutely. I think he probably would. He's sick and tired of sitting in a wheelchair. I mean, his legs move, but they have these spikes in them. It's just really awful.
Wow.
He really got mangled.
Okay,
he lost a lot of weight too.
Yeah. So so he's recovering from the injury. That's why he's in a wheelchair, or he has recovered from the injury and the surgeries, and that's why. Like, what is it?
No, he's recovering in the wheelchair. Like, he's going to be walking soon. It's just he has these big weights and things. He's got those pins like stuck in there, like. It's like Frankenstein.
This is what
scary.
This is what I recommend if he is able to afford it, and that is as soon as he's able to walk, he goes, because this is great. I was assuming he had spinal cord injury and he was paralyzed. So no, if he's in a wheelchair, here's the thing about going back to the regenerative nature of the cells, Dean, is that since he's healing from surgery, and it's still going to take a long time to fully heal, these cells will speed up the healing process like never before. Yeah. Like, I've seen older people with broken hip, and they get the surgery and they go get the cells once they're mobile, and their doctors are like, I have never seen anyone heal from a hip surgery as fast as you. It's that's great. Yeah, no, the cells will focus on the injury. Now, that said, it won't focus as much on a lot of the other issues of the anti-aging aspect, because they'll be doing so much work on the injury. And of course, EmCell will accommodate for that. It's personalized, so they're going to give a much higher amount of the cells related to, fixing those. It would honestly be the pre-mesenchymal cells and all the cells derived from the liver that are related to this, versus giving, and they probably would give a lot extra neuronal cells, I would assume, as well. But I would encourage them to at least. Not enough people take the time to just submit the records. They think, oh, it's unobtainable. Oh, how could I get to Ukraine? Oh, I can't afford it. But why not just submit the records? Why not submit the records and find out? It's free, you know? So
Yeah. I got to talk to him again for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to go back.
To see him like sitting there. Yeah. Let's go back.
Yeah, because when I met you, one of the first things you said was you had a family history of prostate issues. So it's like in the genes. If you don't mind talking about that quickly, I'd love to, because I know there's other people that might be in your position or just older men that are having issues for other reasons that would love to know about this. So you were getting up, I'm going to review from what I remember. Your father and perhaps other men in your family had prostate issues. Uncle, okay.
Cancer,
and you were getting up like what, 6 times a night sometimes to urinate?
Sometimes more.
Okay.
Sometimes 10 or 15 times.
Wow. And I remember you saying to me, I have it on camera too. I remember you saying, if this therapy can fix my prostate, it's worth all the trouble. And so tell me, I mean, do you,
I feel like it's improved a lot. I feel like it's not like the fact that I was losing so much sleep was destroying my life. Like I felt like it was like ruining my life to never having good sleep. Plus I also have sleep apnea, which I didn't tell anybody.
Okay.
Which since I left Ukraine, I bought a CPAP machine. So I've been trying to sleep with that. And it's been helping me out too. So the prostate issues, I think they're less now for sure. I'm not urinating all the time, so that helps.
That's great.
That was worth it.
If you don't mind, I know that each day is different and there's different reasons for having to get up. Even though I have a healthy prostate, if I drink too much water, I'll get up at 3 a.m. and, pee. But my point is like if you're doing it up to 6 times a night or more, like what is sort of, once the cells sort of.
And then it was empty. And then it wasn't even peeing that much. It was just getting up to go and then just like dribbling just a little. And it was like really annoying and scary.
Sure.
Because my uncle and my father both had prostate cancer.
Oh, wow.
So my doctor's like breathing down my neck to go to a urologist. But I did go to a urologist at EmCell. And they injected my prostate with stem cells. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and not enough of people are aware that they will do that. So do you mind just sort of telling like the short version of like how that injection was, if you want to share?
It was just a little pinch. It was nothing like when they do biopsies where they just like jab it 12 times, which I didn't do yet. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because they damage it like that in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It was like one little prick. He goes, "That's the stem cells right there." Because he put the camera inside the rectum, and then there's a little pinpoint that comes out with the needle, and he just injected it there.
Wow. So EmCell had a camera. Inside. Okay. See, that's why I wanted to ask, is because so many people don't understand like the level that they go there and how deep they go into this therapy. It's not just stick some cells into the vein. Now, in the case of anti-aging like me, it's just cells in the vein, cells subcutaneously in the abdomen, and of course, eye injections, etc. But for someone like yourself, they actually, do it like, that's all I'm trying to say. It's remarkable. And to be honest, you were the first person I was told that they do that. Wow. So my question was, if you were doing it up to 6 times a night or more, like once the cells sort of kicked in after the 3-month mark-ish, like how did it change and how was it like today?
It actually happened pretty fast. Like by the time I flew back to Los Angeles after I left Ukraine, I was not peeing all the time, like at all. I remember just getting off the plane and being like, oh my God, I don't think I peed once on the plane.
Wow.
And I was drinking water the whole time.
Yeah.
And I thought it was strange.
And
I was so happy.
That's something else I want to say to anyone listening, is that it's people say, how long does it take to kick in? And of course, EmCell is going to say, 1 to 3 months. The reason why they say 1 to 3 months is like as I show in the new documentary, when they test the cells in vitro to see how they proliferate, they realize that certain cells take about a month to fully proliferate, while other cells take up to 3 months. Yet at the same time, for some reason, because they add all of these growth factors and these biologically active substances that the cells are in their normal environment, they understand how to give them the best, biological substance to help them flourish. For some reason, some people have these extremely fast results, like you just experienced. As some people with MS, who have not been able to walk normally. They get rid of their walking stick. In fact, another guy with nerve damage and some other issues that I'm going to do a podcast with very soon, he left his cane leaning against the St. Sophia as his thank you to Ukraine so he was walking around, within the first, within the first 48 to 72 hours after getting the cells. And of course, EmCell's doctors are always like, yep, sometimes it happens, but they never want to give somebody that kind of hope that it's going to happen that fast.
Hope,
yeah.
That's smart.
And
because they don't give you any expectations that are like over,
So in your case, it happened.
Can't expect too much.
Exactly. In your case, it happened really fast, which is so exciting that it did. So that's wonderful. Yeah.
I know. I can't wait to go back again for another round.
Yeah.
I really feel like it's definitely improved my life.
Yeah, me too. That's why I'm so obsessed with it. Can you believe that I'm the only guy on earth that's covering this? I've really looked. What? Go ahead.
And there's no side effects or anything. There's never been any side effects for this treatment. Everybody asked me, what kind of side effects did you have? I said, nothing, just better sleep and more libido and better breathing. I feel better. I feel stronger, and I feel much more in control and much more like I can multitask and concentrate on all different things at the same time. Do you feel like that too?
Exactly. That's kind of what I was saying in the beginning, was like how it affected me mentally. It just did something to my brain. And I think it's like, it's all a mystery, but the whole mind-body relationship and how it's also interconnected. And if your body is in great shape, and your mind usually, kind of follows suit, and vice versa. But because of when I say holistic, it means the whole body. Like they're treating the whole body, not just a specific symptom. Like you didn't go in there just to have your prostate treated. They treated the whole body. That's why they did that huge range of diagnostics. Because since they're giving you 24 different stem cell types, why not utilize them all and give it to you in tailored dosages on a tailored schedule to treat your entire body? So it's brilliant, which of course is the complete opposite of Western medicine. They just treat whatever the symptom is and ignoring the rest of the body, so.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a definite switch from Western theory.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of going back, I'll let you know, I think the earliest, I'll probably be back in July for sure. Like that's like the one, even though I was there in September, July has usually been my annual month. But if I go there earlier, it's because I might go with some of these National Football NFL players, which again is up in the air at the moment. Of course, because they've never been, the whole Russia thing is, freaks them out, like everybody. But, and of course, being who they are, also the Super Bowl, which is coming up, I guess it's actually like in a few days or something, that's been keeping them distracted because a lot of these guys are on television as commentators for this. And so we have to, I was told, let's get past the Super Bowl and then we'll reconvene. So I might be going back sooner than later. And if I do, I'll let you know. I don't know if it's too soon for you. That would be probably around 6 months. You'd have to ask EmCell's doctors if they're willing to treat you that quickly or not. They don't like to treat people 6 months is usually the earliest. They might do it.
Really?
They usually recommend, and you know what, I can't tell you because I wasn't there for your final consultation. They may have told you, and it might be in your paperwork they gave you, when they recommend the earliest you come back. But yeah.
Yeah, they said to come back in a year.
So they did say a year. Okay.
They want to come back in a year.
All right, cool. That's their recommendation, because they also don't want to oversell, be like, hey, and sound like they're trying to sell therapy. And that's, they want to be realistic about.
They're really cool about that. They're really good about that.
Yeah.
It's just the best experience I've had in a long time.
I know.
And I'm just happy that I got to go.
It's so crazy, Dean, because I was all set to go, and we had talked, and you're like, I'm coming. I'm like, dude, all trains are sold up. Don't care. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna maybe rent a private car or a bus. And then you were like, I remember you texting me from the bus. You're like, dude, we've been at the border for how many hours?
It was like 3 hours. It was crazy.
Like, what a colossal waste of time. Why are we sitting here?
Going back was 21 hours in a bus. I had to spend to Krakow. Luckily, I rented 2 seats.
Oh, yeah, good for you. Yeah, a lot of going there is easy. You can get by train. You can get the private car, the sleeper car. But going back, they don't have the private sleeper cars, and if they do, it's the 4-person sleeper car. So some people have rented, even if they're by themselves, all 4 beds in the room. But yeah,
exactly.
So we missed each other in Krakow. We were both there. I know you were busy. I was with my wife and her friends. But did you go to
both in LA and we missed each other?
I know, right? I know. It's funny. We'll catch up one of these days. You know what's funny, Dean? I have so many friends through this journey that I only see in Ukraine. I've
really?
like Lawrence J., the guy with multiple sclerosis who I've been following since 2015. He's the one in the new film. I know I shared you a password protected link of it, but he's the one with a kind of older doctor who was flabbergasted. He had the glasses on. He was like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. He and so many people in my movie I've only met them, even though I've known them for now, 6 years, 7 years, 8. I only see him in Ukraine. But since I worked on the new documentary, I did finally travel to some of their homes because I wanted to interview them in their homes. But yeah, it is fascinating.
Is he going back every year too? Does he go back every year?
Yes. However, since he's been getting it every year since he started in Mexico before Mexico ran out of cells. And then he started in Ukraine. I think he went around the same time I did the first time. Anyway, yeah, he goes back every year, but he has not been back this year due to Russia. But luckily for him, he's in complete remission.
He's probably doing well though anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and he's had it so many times. He's in good shape. But he did say, and COVID was another one, he did not go during COVID. He did say that taking more than a year off, he started to feel it diminishing. And so in 2021, which he's in the movie there with me, in July, I believe, he did get it again. And of course, doing great, So it goes back again to the degenerative nature of the disease, MS, because no one's going to say we're going to cure your MS. There's no reason. We don't know why it occurred to begin with. All it can do is push those symptoms back and, kind of fight against the degenerative nature of the disease. Same with Parkinson's. Like, it's not going to reverse it permanently. I mean, there is this one woman in my first movie who, to my knowledge, has never had it again, who went once for Parkinson's, has still been fine. I still communicated with her on Facebook. I don't know how that happened. What?
Your dad had your type 2 diabetes, right?
Yeah.
How's he doing?
Oh, great. And that was a one shot as well. His feet are still fine. But the reason, now type 2 diabetes is different because my father, classic, red-blooded Italian, ate white pasta, white bread his whole life, drank a lot of Pepsis, and gave himself type 2, like so many adults have done. And so once he, and EmCell told him, and of course I badgered him, I said, look, they're going to fix your feet because it's easy, because the endothelial cells will completely rebuild your vasculatory system in your feet. But if you go back to your eating habits, it's just going to come back. They're going to happen again. So he did not, and they're still fixed. So it's great. So when type 2 diabetes, what?
Yeah.
So
it's interesting.
Yeah, because type 2 diabetes, not for everyone, but for many, many people, it's adult onset. So if people are unwilling to change their lifestyle once it fixes everything, then, what can you do? I mean, however, I will say that EmCell jokes sometimes off the record and says, look, we have people with type 2 that come in, we fix them. And then they come back a year and a half later because they eat chocolate cake and they pound Coca-Colas, and we have to fix them again. And in fact, there's a podcast with a woman from Bulgaria whose child with autism has done really well. And she had pre-diabetes. And so she finally got the therapy. And she says in the podcast, they completely reversed my pre-diabetes, but I can't help it. I keep eating chocolate cake and I do all the bad things I'm not supposed to do. But since she goes back every year for her autistic child, she also just keeps getting the therapy and keeps the pre-diabetes at bay. So
how does it do that? It levels out the blood sugar? Like, what is it?
Well,
I don't understand.
There's many things, but obviously it levels out the blood sugar, and also, and because you're getting pancreatic cells as well. I don't fully understand all of the science, but most diabetic, symptoms for type 2 have to do with screwing up your vascular system, which screws up your eyesight. You know, it just slowly degenerates so many things, and fetal stem cells just reconstructs all of it. It's almost like, you know, the animation where the guy, it's like the animation you see where somebody knocks down the house of cards and then somebody builds it back up 10 seconds later. It's like what fetal stem cells is doing with most type 2, you know. if the patient,
I used to get my leg used to get numb when I was cooking. Like I'd be cooking for too long and my right leg would get numb and prickly and like hot and hurt a lot. And it doesn't happen anymore.
Correct.
Which is another great thing. I forgot about that.
Yeah, basic neuropathy for almost any patient. That's what that is. That tingling is just a form of neuropathy and numbness. It'll take care of it. I mean, in most everybody. And, you know, again, if the source, in your case, who knows why it is happening, but if it's something that related to a degenerative disease, it doesn't always fix it forever. And that's why people go back, just, you know, keep it at bay. But yeah. So, yeah.
It's like putting in the bank. It's like you keep building on the same on the cells every year and just like getting stronger and stronger, or just keeping it completely ready for anything.
It's kind of like what I was saying. I always like to joke and say it's like cheating Mother Nature, and it kind of is. I mean, going back to people like the type 2 diabetics that keep repeating the same patterns, and then it comes back and fixes it for you. There's nothing else in scientific medicine that can do that for you.
And I guess now we're part Ukrainian too.
Yeah, right. I know, it is kind of amusing.
And I have more courage now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there could be worse genes that we could be having in us.
No, these are the best ones. I'm so happy about it. I love them. They're great. I want to go back and see them just to visit them.
And when you go back, you'll have your same doctor. They won't put anybody else assigned to you. And so I often, before Russia, I mean, I was going, especially working on the documentary, I was going there 4 times a year. And every time I'd go, they'd want to take my blood. They'd want to give me an ultrasound, check my urine, give me a checkup, and see how I'm doing. So I was getting physicals 4 times a year, you know, while filming. And because, by the way, not that many people pass through Ukraine, but they encourage that. You know, they say, look, we want to keep track of you. We want to keep track of every patient. So every time you come back, even if you don't get the therapy, if you want to just pop by the clinic, we will do a full...
Everybody's a case study, pretty much. Everybody is
That's their only way that they can get any statistical data on anything, whether is by doing this.
It's smart.
And I'm sure by now they've emailed you, right? And said, hey, Dean, how you been? Anything going on?
I haven't gotten an email. I don't think I did. But everything seems to be going in my spam folder. I have to check that out, actually.
Check it out.
Go through it and check.
Because they always do it at the 3-month mark. September, October, November, December. Yeah, you got one. They probably want to know how you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah. Because that's
Definitely.
There, you know, if you have any latest blood tests or or any kind of testing you've done since, they're going to want to see it and stick it in your file.
Super. Well, definitely stay in touch and let me know if you're going to go back over there.
I will.
When you're going to go, and maybe I'll go too. And if you want to know anything else, I'll let you know.
Thanks.
I'll email you or something, new information or whatever.
Awesome.
Or some of my friends that want to go, I'll find out more information too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
thank you for the time. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Reconnecting with you. And hopefully this Russia situation will end soon and we can go there by airplane again versus, you know, the way we did. And it's funny, if we ever get a chance to go back by airplane, we're going to remember what it was like the first time when we went, or when you went. And really, really...
No regrets. I would do it again.
Well, overall, Dean, I'm so happy that you've had good results. This is why I keep doing this and keep spreading the word about it, is, you know, it's cases and stories like yourself. It makes me so happy. It makes it all the time I take and all
it's like you want to help everybody. You just want to help everybody.
Yeah.
Like when you see like somebody that can be helped.
Yeah, and
it's just a natural reflex.
Exactly. And as I said in the new documentary, which everyone will see soon enough, is, you know, only 25,000 people on Earth in history, you and I included, have ever even had this therapy. No one knows about this therapy.
I feel privileged, totally privileged.
Yeah, me too.
I wish everybody could get it.
I know. Me too.
Know?
Me too. All right, Dean, let's stay in touch. And thanks for the time.
You got it, buddy.
All right.
Thank you.
All
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was episode 19 of the God Cells podcast. I will be releasing Ukraine Fetal Stem Cell Pioneers very soon for free on YouTube. What is interesting is that my first documentary, called Brzezinski, Cancer is Serious Business, originally released in 2010, that exploded in 2011. Netflix, documentary channel, PBS, got tens of millions of views on the internet worldwide, translated into 12 languages. In 2011, I did a sequel released in 2013. That first documentary is on YouTube again, on a very large YouTube channel with a lot of subscribers, and has had 2.2 million views since January 1st. Today is only January 15. That's 2 weeks. So the same YouTube channel, as well as many other YouTube channels, will be hosting Ukraine Fetal Stem Cell Pioneers. I am giving this project away. So sign up to my mailing list, follow me on Facebook, or shoot me an email, eric@ericmerola.com, if you want to be notified of the release of this documentary. And this documentary's YouTube channel has many, many videos spanning back to 2016. And I have 18 other podcasts, so there's a wealth of information out there about fetal stem cell therapy. And I somehow seem to be the only journalist on earth that's covering it. Until next time, stay healthy.